first of all, Sir James, thanks so much for joining me here for this little conversation, and we're very much looking forward to you coming to Boston. Listen, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, your Tanglewood recital was very interesting to me for a number of reasons, but one thing that I thought was really neat about it was that it was like a guided tour of the sort of great lineage of French flute virtuosi led by an Irishman who falls directly in their heritage.
Well, I can tell you, when I was a young lad, I had a teacher who was a singer, a professional singer, but she took up the flute. And as a matter of fact, she became the solo flute player of the local orchestra in Belfast. This was Muriel Dunn. But she learned with two teachers. She learned with Robert Murchie, who embraced the English school of flute playing, and with Jeffrey Gilbert, who embraced the French school. And there was no doubt in her mind which one was the best. So she brought me up in the French tradition, and I continued that at the Royal College of Music with John Francis, teaching me from the Moyes books, and then with Jeffrey Gilbert, who was French trained. And then I studied actually with Moyes, and then I studied in Paris Conservatoire with Crunel, and of course we all tried to have lessons with Jean-Pierre, but that was more like eating lessons. And I really got into the whole French way of playing, which I thought was more virtuoso, more elegant, more charming. And this was all apparent in the players when you hear them play. When you hear people like Jean-Pierre Rampal play, or Crunel, my old teacher, Marcel Moyes, and the few recordings we have of Philippe Gaubert, you hear this charm and virtuosity going on there, which is lacking in other schools. And that's the way I wanted to go. And of course, I fell into playing all this music. But the reason that we did all this stuff in my recital in Boston was because I wanted to prepare for the National Flute Association recital, and there I wanted to show them what these great flute players played. Like Riccialdi, for example, who was a great virtuoso Italian, played the Carnival of Venice. Morlacchi, who was not a flute player but wrote a great piece for the Italian school, and then the Gaubert Sonata No. 3, which I began the recital with, was it's a beautiful piece, and they were generally all virtuoso pieces.
That was one of the things I was interested to ask you about, because one of the most striking aspects of that recital was just the level of sheer virtuosity. It was just sort of, glistening, sheeny, brilliant playing, but very elegant also. And that seems to be something that you're so at home in this particular repertoire.
Well, I am, but I'm also not bad at playing Bach's sonatas too.
Sure. But in this particular recital, this was what you were featuring, and I thought it was something that was really striking. Right. And the other thing that I thought was very striking about it was your commentary, the way you bring these characters alive, both in the way that you talk about them and also in the way you play the actual music. Yes. And that's something that really resonated with the crowd.
Well, I think it's a time where we should talk about these people on stage. Imagine what it would be like if Alfred Brendel said just a few words about Beethoven before he played the Emperor Concerto. And I mean, Brendel is a wonderful man and speaks very, very well. The audience would absolutely love it.
Well,
these players don't do that.
Right, you're a very persuasive advocate for that, and that's something that all of the flute players in the audience and all the rest of us also very much appreciate. And following up on that, I wonder actually if you could talk a little bit about this Ibert concerto that you're going to be playing with us. I'm looking forward to hearing you. And where does that piece fall in this tradition, in this repertoire?
Well, Ibert was a personal friend of Marcel Moyes, and Ibert wrote this piece for Moyes. And as a matter of fact, he hadn't finished it, and it was coming up near the debut of the piece, and he hadn't finished the slow movement. And then his father died, and he wrote the slow movement, which is a beautiful slow movement as these sort of pieces go. It's very expressive with violin solo in there, clarinet solo, accompanied by the flute with little florid variations. it is a really very special piece. And of course, the last movement is virtuoso beyond means.
But not beyond your means, I'm sure.
No, I think I'll have it ready.
Okay, very good. Can you talk a little bit about your relationship with our very special conductor this week? You're going to be working with an old collaborator, Bernard Haitink, who's a great favorite of ours and of yours as well. Can you talk about your relationship collaborating with Mr. Haitink?
Sure. The first time I played with Bernard was in the Berlin Philharmonic when he conducted Mahler's Fifth Symphony. And it was a really tremendous reading of the score. I mean, the orchestra just loved it. And the audience went wild. I can still picture him. And he was so cute, you know. After the slow movement, he stood down off the podium just to catch his breath, so to speak. And then he got up on the podium and started off the last movement. It was very nice to see this. And then, of course, I didn't see him once I left the Berlin Philharmonic. But he happens to be my neighbor here, so I see quite a lot of him. And, you know, when he has a musical evening at his house, he always invites us, and we have the greatest time there. You know, the last time we were there, we had a lot of people playing, like Emanuel Ax and Andras Schiff, yeah. And, I mean, to hear these guys playing up close, in a small 150-seater, this is Bernard's studio. It's just amazing. I mean, they're such beautiful players. And then they had the solo clarinetist from the Amsterdam Orchestra from the Concerto, and he played the Mozart clarinet quintet. And I mean, these are just musical moments that you can never, ever hear anywhere else. And they're so intimate. And so Jeannie and I gave the whole thing a bit of class by playing something by Doppler for two flutes. And naming Bernard as the chief of the Doppler Society for Switzerland.